Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aspetillo.ai. And I've got Michael Earls here today, and we're talking about his book, Finding Direction in the Age of AI, Leadership, Clarity, and Staying Human in a World Moving at Machine Speed. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about the book. Where can people find information about you?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Tim. And you can find information about me on michaelearls.com. So pretty much my first name, last name.com. You can also reach me on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. Love the book. What was the inspiration behind it?
Oh, it's kind of odd when I think about this. About 5 years ago, I was sitting in the kitchen. It was early. It's probably about 5 o'clock in the morning. I love to get up early, but not that early. And I was just sitting there thinking, what am I doing with myself? I feel like I'm running in multiple different directions, but I never get anywhere. And that's the kind of that speed thought there. And then I look and I go, who's driving my calendar if my wife's not driving my day? And that really kind of made me start thinking, how do I manage my day better? How do I start managing my calendar that drives my North Star? And then when I was looking at them going, my God, you spend all day going nowhere and you're like, what did I do today? And it's a lot of those, notifications. I feel like we all live in a slot world machine. We're constantly pulling the lever and all of a sudden we're like, what do we accomplish? And so then I was thinking, how do I actually tie those together? And then, coffee inspires actions is how I look at it.
Yeah.
I'm always, everything's flowing at my house in terms of coffee. So I was like, oh my God, speed without direction is just noise. I'm like, I love that. I'm going to write that down. And that kind of became my through line of my book at that point.
So the title of your book contrasts machine speed with human connection. What was the exact moment or realization in your career that made you say we are moving way too fast and we're losing direction?
When I look at this, before lockdown, we could do whatever we want. Nobody was pinging you every minute. I used to travel the world, jump on planes, sit in coffee shops, and I just have my time to myself. And it feels like after lockdown, it turned into nobody ever leaves anymore. And then what happens is we lost that human connection. What we really have now is we have a notification, interlocked anymore. It's like everything I do anymore is there's a bing, there's a beep, there's a you've got mail. And I'm like, where am I going? And that all kind of tied back in together, which is what changed in my world. And it goes to how do I actually start moving forward without going backwards or without getting misguided along the way. And that's kind of how I start to feel now is that we're so interconnected with the machines that we have to find a way to disconnect and bring that human element back, which is how do we be present again? How do we actually bring that interactive, that in that the personality of people back?
Yeah, I've switched off all the dings on mine.
I switched them all off. Exactly.
Yeah. Because it's just so distracting, With anyway, you emphasize that speed without direction is just a faster way to make a mistake. With everyone rushing to adopt AI right now, what is the biggest, most common wrong direction you are seeing companies sprinting towards?
Hmm. It's such a great question. When I always think if somebody tells you, "Hey, Tim, go jump off that bridge," what do you say? Why? Why should I go jump off that bridge? That's the problem we're having with AI is that every board, every executive says, I want this initiative, but they never ask that simple question. What are we trying to solve? Where are we trying to go? What business case is going to help out? Where is it going to make my life, my team's life, my company's life better? And what typically happens is the companies that succeed are the ones that actually say, I'm putting AI in because I need faster access to data. I need more reliable data that, you know, a human was never meant to build Excel spreadsheets and do math correlations in Excel. It's not what humans are for. Machines, great. But when you start mixing that around, you lose, you know, what's the point of the AI project at that point? And then what you're really doing is you're just You're spending money to spend money and say, I have an AI initiative without actually having something that's building that business case. Then
Mm,
AI and then the tools just become your strategy. And we know what happens when tools are strategy, you never really get anywhere.
mm. In the book, you talk about finding clarity. How can a leader maintain trusted judgment and make clear decisions when they are absolutely flooded with data, new tools, and constant tech hype?
I wrote about this before, which is how do we turn off our notifications? How do we actually continue to head towards something? So, in my new book that I released, and in this book, I talked about this North Star, finding that North Star, finding how to get there. In the newer book, I talk about how to actually use the compass, which is the north, which is your direction. Your east is what comes in. South is where you really kind of focus, and then you know. West is how do you actually eliminate some of those noises, and I might get those things wrong, but the idea is how do I actually gear towards something that is going to make you got to have a direction somewhere. And then when I look at this, which is, uh, where's that clarity at today? And that clarity gets lost a lot. And, people's mission changes, people's direction changes all day long. And somebody always asks me, hey, how do you plan? I go, well, during the week, it's me. On the weekend, it's my wife telling me what to do. And so now it's like, how do I actually live by my calendar? And I wrote about that years ago is how do I put in easy methodologies to live by my calendar? How do I not have emails drive my direction or text messages drive my direction? And that's what we have to do. As humans again is bringing out that perspective of saying, you know what, I own myself today, I own my daily direction today, and I'm going to bridge into that life now.
Mm. It's good, good counsel. You've managed massive global enterprise transformations. What is a human change challenge that leaders completely underestimate when they try to deploy new technology like AI?
Hmm. Middle management. The way I look at it is you got executives at the top saying we need this, you've got the guys on the bottom going, well, it sounds great. But middle managers is the ones who's actually going to make this successful. So they're going to build that action plan that says, here's where we're going to deploy it. Here's how we're going to put it in place. Here's how we're going to train everybody. Here's the real business cases we're going after, the storytelling. When I look at companies that have done AI very successful, it's the ones that say, this is the story. Here are the things that it's going to simplify. Here it's going to drive life differently. And when that gets missed, you lose your business case, you lose your strategy, and then what we have today is what we call as AI sprawl. It's like the years ago when we had IT sprawl, which is line of business doing IT stuff. Now we're just everybody's got AI. I got Copilot, I've got Claude, I've got OpenClaw, and you're going for what?
Yeah.
Trying them out.
Yeah.
What's the business case around it? I don't really know. And that's what typically happens today is it's just things get lost again and nothing ever succeeds.
Mm. Yeah, I contact people and they say, so what are you doing? And they say, we've got some sales. There's a sales guy sitting in the corner playing with AI. Doing what?
Yeah.
What's he or she trying to do with it?
Exactly. And you're going, marketing might be using it for messaging, but they're using a different tool. And then you go, uh, where's my data? Who's actually managing my data at this point? And what data is getting out in the wild that shouldn't be out there?
Mm.
And that's what I always worry about is the IT governance, the security around that. And again, goes back to what's my story? How do I tell that story and bridge all those wonderful, fun things into it?
You argue that technology didn't remove the need for direction, it exposed how little of it we had.
Hmm.
If a company's culture or vision is already a bit fractured, what happens to them when we introduce AI?
Oh man, we're just exposed more. So when you think of if a company's culture is present, people can feel it. It's something you can touch. It's tangible. When the culture is broken, everybody's kind of trying to figure out what direction they're heading in, and then when you bring AI into it, they get totally lost. They're like, "What am I doing? Why does this matter at this point?" And then it just really ruins that direction. Um, And then it just amplifies. So when I think of if I have a bad company strategy, I have a bad company culture, what happens? It exposed at like 10x. And that's what AI is going to do is it's going to expose your problems. Back when I was a network engineer, we used to say, how do we know if the network is successful? We run games on it. You bring Doom, you bring all these, multiplayer games, and you know if your network's going to work. Same thing that AI is going to do is it's going to expose all those bad data points, all the bad data, all the exposed entry points. You're going, what do we do with this stuff after it's been exposed? Can't fix it. You have to go start back at at the beginning of the problem.
So if AI can automate our tasks, write our emails, and analyze our data, what exactly does human value look like in a workplace moving forward? What are the skills AI can never touch?
The first one I would describe would be trust.
Yeah.
You can't trust the data. Again, data is only as good as the data you put into it. So if you got bad data, you're going to get bad answers. I live by my gut. Why? Because my gut tells me if I'm doing something right or wrong. So I always look at trust as a big, component. It's what takes years to build. And then the second thing I always look at is presence. AI is not going to be your presence. Yes, sitting across from somebody, actually sharing those moments to be seen, to be heard, and then judgment. AI is not going to tell you what to filter out. It might help you, but the idea is judgment on how to filter these things out. Machines can process everything, but humans decide what matters. And then I always describe what we need today in this world is we need real mentorship. We have lost that. And it's the kind of mentorship that you ask someone the same question 3 times over 3 months and just see how that answer progresses. See how they've grown in 3 months, in 3 years. AI can generate advice, and a lot of people are using it as a counselor, and it's not a counselor thing. It's just reading you what it knows. And the way I look at it is if you can't wait for it, and you probably don't want to hear it, but AI is not the right little counselor approach there. It is how do I actually go back to generating, being present, building my relationships with people again, and actually mentoring people today.
Yeah. For me, the human has to stay in the loop.
Yes,
um,
has
and
to be.
and there has to be a human element about it, because ultimately it's the human that's going to make the decision and the risk. We can allow it to crunch the numbers, but at the end of the day, we are the person that's going to have to say, "This is what the answer is," and we're going to go with that.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole reason you think of we've got great executives today and they've made, gut decisions to say, we're going to go public or we're going to go sell, we're going to go build a brand new product in a market that's not there. And a lot of the times the data wasn't there. You think of it's a brand new market. There's no data for it, but I'm going to go do something. And that's where we, again, human has to be 100% in that loop. We cannot remove that human from that loop.
Yeah, the famous one is the Walkman, isn't it? Which
Yeah.
when Sony did the analysis, everyone said, "What? Why would I want to listen to music on headphones? I listen to music at home."
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it takes it to the next level, which is like Steve Jobs. Why would I want a new phone that does all these things? I got a BlackBerry or I have an iPod, and it's amazing. There was no AI at that time. Then I think of I hear stories about Linux, and you think of no, there was no AI generating the code for Linux, but half the world runs on Linux today, or more than half the world. And it's like, wow, how did that exist before AI?
For the leader or professional who feels they are drowning in the noise of the AI era, what is the one daily habit or boundary that we can implement to allow people to find their footing again?
This is going to sound very simple. It's something I try and do every day. So before we started, we talked about this coffee hour,
Yep.
and shout out to my daughter for brand new glass. But I look at it and I go, how do I actually take 2 minutes of silence? Before I actually sit down, open up my email. It's not meditation. It's not a routine. It's not another app. It's just me being me, enjoying 2 minutes of a coffee, you know, noticing what comes up after that. It's like I just need to spend a little bit more time for me. And then the rest could be the other 8 hours of going nowhere. But I go back to living by your calendar, living by a direction at that point, enjoying just a few minutes to you. And then it's how do I get to the next world after that? It's like I just need 2 minutes to myself. I need to be able to corroborate. I can't say that word today, but I need to be able to find that associated direction just for that day. And it's, the world is going to take away. My calendar is going to beep. All those things are going to change. But I just have to find that one little reflection for the day, that one little devotional, that one little, just something to me. And that is, just enjoying that cup of coffee and be like, all right, now I'm ready to get my day started.
You talk about mentorship and communication in the book. How do we ensure that the next generation of workers who are entering an AI first workforce
Mhm.
still learn the deep foundational human skills that took veterans decades to build?
I describe it as I was lucky enough to have two fathers. I have a stepdad and I have a dad. And they both taught me two different things. And I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but one taught me about flour, the other one taught me about flowers. Very similar, but they both taught me direction.
Yeah.
And but neither did it through speeches. They didn't stand up there and go, "This is what you're going to do." They taught it on how they lived, and I got to watch them. Um, that's how you build that deep skills that we're missing. So we have to have people stand up. We have to have people start leading others, and people will learn at that point. This younger generation wants leaders. This young generation wants people to look up to and say, that's how I should live my day today. That's how I can actually make changes in my life is by being present, being human, and asking great questions. But I also look at it and I go, a lot of young folks today, they just feel lost. And, it's not awkward. It's just what happens. It happens because there's so much noise. Think about all this noise we have. You've got this, just think about all the advertisements going on today, and you're going, do I need that? And I look at the same thing, which is young generation needs someone to say, I will help you. I will teach you. I will give you guidance, but you have to learn to listen. You have to learn to watch. And eventually I feel like that's an innate ability is that they start learning those things. That's how things get passed down is by looking and action and by doing.
If there is one core thesis or single North Star concept from finding direction in the age of AI, what would you want a reader to carry with them for the rest of their career? What is it?
Hmm. If they didn't read my book and they just wanted one thing to think about is I would probably say, it's that core thesis I built everything on is speed without direction is just noise.
Yeah.
And so it's like everything else in a book, could be noise to you. But the idea is being able to find a direction, head towards that direction, knowing you're going in the right direction because you're turning off all those distractions in the world today and setting a destination at this point saying I'm going to go here and we're going to get this done, and no matter how many times my phone rings or emails coming in, that's what I have to get done today. And I always feel like that's one of the things I'm going to change. That's what I'm going to look at is making sure people know where the North Star is, finding that inner direction.
So, final question. Looking ahead, what makes you optimistic about a world integrated with AI, provided we manage to keep our humanity intact?
Is that a paradox, right? So I look and I go, what makes me feel very optimistic is the more capable machines get, the more value the human presence becomes. Kind of let that sink in a little bit. The more the human presence becomes, AI is going to rise, it's going to build, it's going to grow, but it goes back to how do we build that trust? How do we build mentorship? How do we have clarity in levels we haven't seen in a long time? And I look and I go, humans have to be humans again. Machines have to be machines. When a human starts becoming a machine, that's a problem. Machines will never be human. So we have to find a way to understand our goals at that point, the success factors, and say, I'm not going to go copy and pasting all day long. That's what machines do. I need to say, I'm going to set a direction and let the machine handle the underlying tasks of the world at that point.
Michael Earls, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Finding Direction in the Age of AI, Leadership, Clarity, and Staying Human in a World Moving at Machine Speed. So, Michael, if I wanted to buy a copy of these, where can I get one from?
You can go to michaelearls.com. I link it to Amazon. All my books are on Amazon, and they're also in Kindle version as well.
Excellent. And where can we find information about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say michaelearls.com. It's probably the easiest one to go to. I've got everything around my books as well as weekly devotionals that I kind of post out there, and then just daily information about cloud and everything that's going on in this world today that I'm living and breathing in. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn, in/Michael Earls. And, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you reading my book as well.
You're welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight and your expertise.
Well, thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
go enjoy the rest of that tea. I'm going to go finish my